Hi guys, it is Miss Dyer. If you're watching this, you were not able to join your virtual online class at 10:30. You guys are in the Bears group and we meet Wednesdays. So what I thought I would do is record a video that focuses on some of the suffixes that we were practicing in my classroom, and then looking at a passage, just a really short little text that uses some of those suffixes, and then working on main idea and detail. So we're gonna read a story together, complete the organizer, and if at any point you want to pause the video, if you would like to draw this main idea and details graphic organizer, you're more than welcome to, or you can just kind of follow along with me. So what I want to start with first is going over the suffixes that we were practicing. So if we remember, suffixes are what we add to a base word or a root word. Remember, the root word or base word can stand by itself. The suffix that we add at the end changes the meaning of that word. So for example, we practice 3 sounds of ed, and if we remember, ed lets me know something happened in the past. And ed made the sounds of ed, d, and t. We also practice the suffix s and, make sure, the suffix es. S, of course, just makes the s sound, while es makes the es sound. And es and s lets me know something is plural. So I have several bats to play baseball. I have more than one bat. Or there were several foxes in my neighborhood. And if you remember, we add es if a word ends in x, like fox, or like a ch, some of those digraphs. We had less, less, so sockless, to be without socks. Homeless, to be without a home. So less lets me know that I'm without something. Ness, N-E-S-S, sadness, happiness. When I add ness to a word, it just means I'm full of that specific word. Sadness, I'm full of feeling sad. Happiness, I'm full of that feeling of joy. Okay, I had ing as a suffix. That lets me know something is happening right now. You're watching this video. I'm speaking to you. We're doing those things right now when we add ing. I have the suffix er, like singer, teacher. This kind of allows us to go from a verb. So sing would be a verb. It's an action word. When I add the er, I'm changing it to a noun. Now it's a person, a singer. I teach, that's the verb. When I add the suffix er, I become a teacher. It's now a noun. I have est, so for example, fastest, quickest. It's letting me compare. That's what this suffix does. En, so in words like strengthen, quicken. So basically you're adding, okay? You're increasing the amount that you're doing something. I'm strengthening my skills. I'm increasing my strength. I'm going to quicken my speed for running. I'm increasing how fast I'm moving. Okay. We also have ish, ish, like ticklish. We have ly, ly, safely, quickly. It's the manner in which I'm doing something, okay? So if I'm safely crossing the street, I'm doing it in a safe manner. I also have y. Remember, y at the end of a word changes it so it sounds like e. Dusty, speedy. So basically it's full of dust, full of speed when we add that y. And then full, helpful. So when I use full, it's just letting me know I am kind of like, I guess the best way to describe it, if I'm helpful, I'm full of help, okay? So these are the suffixes, and in the story that we read, we're actually going to be reading something called Fairy Flies. And I might turn this light off. It might help us see a little bit better. Let me see. I have my passage here, and I wanted to make sure that you guys can see it pretty well. I might just hold it up for you. Okay. So I'm going to read this story, and I just blew it up a little bit. And the first time I'm going to read it, and I'm just going to be looking for suffixes that I see. So the smallest insects are fairy flies. They are not true flies. They are tiny wasps. They are so small that you may not see them. Beetles are another family of small bugs. Some beetles are very small too. They are much smaller than butterflies. They are smaller than beetles. They are even smaller than flies. But fairy flies are smaller than the smallest beetles. They are the smallest of all bugs. So just looking at this passage, let's go through and let's circle some of those suffixes that we actually see in the passage. And I'm just going to go sentence by sentence. The smallest. So I already see right here my ext suffix, okay? The smallest insects are fairy flies. They are not true flies. They are tiny wasps. So here, I'm adding that suffix s, and I'm actually making this plural, so I know that there's more than one wasp. They are so small that you might not see them. Beetles are another family of small bugs. Some beetles are very small too. They are much smaller than butterflies. So there we go. We've got that ER though too. And here this ER is making a comparison. So I can tell something is smaller than the butterfly. The beetles are smaller than the butterfly. And actually, as I read, this passage starts to let me know it's talking about insects that are very small. So I'm going to keep that in my mind because when we work on that main idea, I want to remember, hey, I'm reading a lot about a lot of really small insects in this passage. They are smaller, so there again, I see that ER, making that comparison. They are smaller than bees. They are even smaller, I see it again, than flies. But fairy flies are smaller than the smallest beetles. So I get smaller again in here, but now I'm also getting my EST. So if I look, that smaller and smallest. So I know smallest must be the teeniest out of all of them. It's helping me compare their sizes. They're the smallest, again, of all bugs. So I see several suffixes in this passage, but now what I want to do a little bit is talk about the main idea. I know I'm talking a lot about small bugs, okay? I'm going to kind of look through the passage though, and I see several bugs are talked about. They talk about the fairy fly, they talk about tiny wasps, beetles, bees, they even talk about flies. And at the end of the passage, they remind me again though, fairy flies are smaller than the smallest beetles. They are the smallest of all bugs. So I definitely know this passage is mostly about small insects. But I think what it's wanting me to realize is they're comparing these fairy flies to a lot of the other insects that I see. And fairy flies are actually, if you look at the top, they're not actually true flies. They're actually tiny wasps. So I'm thinking maybe the main idea of this passage is that the smallest insects are fairy flies. Now, they do give me lots of information than just about fairy flies. And it seems to be in this text, they're constantly comparing the size of the fairy fly to other insects. So let's fill out this chart. I'm going to cover up this a little bit. I want you guys to be able to see. All right. So in this one, I almost think that they give me the main idea in this first sentence. The smallest insects are fairy flies. And I talk about the fairy flies throughout the text, and I compare them to other insects and their size. Okay? Now, I want to look at, well, how do I know they're the smallest insect? What details do they give me to let me know that these are the smallest insects? Well, I do see that they talk about beetles in the text. And here they say, but fairy flies are smaller than the smallest beetles. So that's a detail right there. So I'm going to add that to my detail section right here. Because remember, our supporting details, and we've talked about this, these supporting details are all examples or facts that make my main idea true. Let me get you so you're in the shot here. There we go. Fairy flies are smaller than beetles. And I'm going to squeeze that in. And like I said, if you'd like to copy this chart, you're more than welcome to. If not, you can just follow along. Okay. Now I also want to look in the passage to see what else do they talk about. What other things are small? What other things are they comparing to the fairy fly? Let's see. I think that this is also important. They talk about they are so small that you may not see them. That's another detail. My first detail was how the fairy fly is smaller than the smallest beetle. Now, if I'm talking about it being the smallest insect, I think that example of it's so small I might not see it, that's a good detail to support it being the smallest insect. Okay, so it is so small you may not see it. Now, what you can do is, we found two details to support my main idea. If you'd like, you can look through this passage on your own time, because you can come back and look at this video. See if you can find another detail to add to our list down here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to post some main idea activities on your dojo for this group. They're optional activities. One activity is a quick little main idea video, and then there'll be a worksheet that you can just read a quick little text. They're even shorter than this. And you can try to figure out what's the main idea. What is the text mostly talking about? The things that I post on Dojo are optional, okay? I have sent home packets to this whole reading group, and they focus on some skills that we practice in my classroom for both your fluency and your comprehension, okay? I would pace yourself with those. I know you've got a lot of work in your other classes, so maybe do one activity a week. If you can, next week, try to join us live, and that'll be on Wednesdays. Your time is posted to your class story on your individual dojo page. If not, I will see you guys either live, or you can come back to dojo next week to get some more video instruction and materials. Bye, guys.